The story of the Vietnam War does not begin with American soldiers in jungle fatigues. It begins much earlier, rooted in decades of foreign rule and a people's deep desire for independence. To understand the conflict, you have to look back to the era of French colonialism. For nearly a century, Vietnam was part of French Indochina, a possession exploited for its resources, rubber and rice. This long period of subjugation created a powerful undercurrent of nationalism. A generation of Vietnamese saw foreign rulers control their land, their economy, their destiny, planting the seeds of a fierce resistance that would define the decades to come. After the turmoil of World War II, a window of opportunity seemed to open. Japan, which had occupied Vietnam, surrendered in 1945. In the power vacuum, Ho Chi Minh stepped onto the world stage and declared the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. He sought U.S. support, but the emerging Cold War would shape everything. The French withdrawal led to the 1954 Geneva Accords. Vietnam was temporarily partitioned at the 17th parallel. The north under Ho Chi Minh in Hanoi, the south a non-communist state with its capital in Saigon. A national election in 1956 was meant to reunify the country. That promise became a critical point of contention. Fearing Ho's popularity and the domino effect, the U.S. intervened. Washington backed Ngo Dinh Diem and encouraged refusal of the 1956 vote. Diem's government became autocratic, corrupt, and nepotistic, alienating the populace. By 1960, the National Liberation Front formed, labeled the Viet Cong, seeking reunification. Aid grew into a large advisory mission, over 16,000 by 1963. As insurgency intensified, the U.S. role crept from advising toward active involvement. Diem's repression sparked mass protests. Buddhist self-immolations shocked the world. A coup killed Diem. Weeks later, Kennedy was assassinated. Lyndon Johnson inherited a deepening crisis. Determined to prevent a communist victory, Johnson sought grounds to escalate. In August 1964, the USS Maddox was engaged off North Vietnam while on an intelligence mission. 2 days later, a second attack was reported amid storms. The first clash was real, though provoked. The second likely never happened. Still, both were presented as unprovoked aggression. Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution, granting broad authority to use force. With that mandate, retaliatory strikes began, and the path opened to large-scale ground deployment, a full-fledged American war. With Tonkin passed, the American war began in earnest. In March 1965, 3,500 Marines landed at Da Nang. Their mission, defend air bases, quickly expanded. By year's end, nearly 200,000 U.S. troops pursued search and destroy missions. The goal wasn't territory, but attrition. Find and kill the enemy. Success was measured by body count, a grim metric. Troops faced dense jungle, sweltering heat, and monsoon rains. The enemy was elusive and embedded among civilians. Many were veterans who had fought against the French 10 to 20 years earlier. Guerrilla mastery, tunnels, traps, and ambushes blurred every front line. America leaned on technology and massive bombing like Operation Rolling Thunder. Their booby traps were extremely effective and employed throughout the conflict. They were easy to build, and most of them employed sharpened bamboo stakes in one way or another. Some of the traps they used: punji pits, deadfalls, swinging ball of spikes, pathguard, and Malaysian whips. Agent Orange stripped forests and food supplies, hurting civilians and the environment. Villages burned, millions displaced. Tragedies like My Lai revealed the war's darkest costs. By late 1967, U.S. leaders promised steady progress, light at the tunnel's end. The public was told the enemy was weakening. Then, on Tet, January 30th, 1968, the communists struck. 80,000 attackers hit more than 100 cities, even Saigon's heart. Viet Cong commandos breached the U.S. embassy, live on television. Militarily, Tet failed for the communists. Cities retaken, VC devastated. After brutal fighting, every position was reclaimed. But politically, Tet was a seismic defeat for Washington. Images contradicted official optimism. Walter Cronkite called it a bloody stalemate. Public opinion turned sharply against the war, fueling a powerful anti-war movement. Facing revolt and failure, Johnson halted bombing and sought talks. He stunned the nation by stepping aside. The war had broken his presidency. Richard Nixon won in 1968, promising peace with honor. Vietnamization, withdraw U.S. troops while building South Vietnam's forces. Funding, training, and modern gear shifted the burden to ARVN. From over 540,000 in 1968, numbers steadily fell. Yet Nixon expanded the war, bombing sanctuaries to force talks. The 1970 incursion ignited nationwide protests and tragedy at Kent State. Talks dragged until the 1972 Christmas bombing pressed a breakthrough. In January 1973, accords brought a ceasefire, POW returns, and U.S. troop withdrawal. The accords brought Americans home, but not peace to Vietnam. The ceasefire frayed immediately. North Vietnamese forces stayed as the U.S. shield vanished. South Vietnam faced corruption, weak command, and plummeting morale. Watergate felled Nixon, and Congress slashed aid. No return of U.S. forces. In spring 1975, a swift North Vietnamese offensive toppled city after city. A desperate evacuation ended with tanks crashing the palace gates on April 30th. Vietnam reunified under communist rule, at an immense human cost. Some 2 million civilians died. Over 1 million North Vietnamese and Viet Cong, and 250,000 South Vietnamese troops. More than 58,000 Americans were killed, hundreds of thousands wounded. Many returned to a divided nation, carrying lasting physical and psychological scars. Vietnam rebuilds, yet UXO and Agent Orange effects endure. Vietnam was a costly war where most of the battles were won, but the war was lost. Not on the battlefield, but in trust, strategy, and will. Its legacy still shapes how wars are fought and how nations question power. If this helped you understand Vietnam more clearly, hit like, subscribe, and thanks for watching.